Well, I've made a trip down to my storage unit. I've picked up a monochrome monitor. I think I gave $10 for it. It was in box. It's a Heath Zenith Data Systems monochrome monitor. I have a couple of what I believe are monochrome video cards. I don't think it's a CGA card. I think one of these actually said monochrome on it. Let me find the other one. Not that card. It's not that one. Well, that's odd. I know I had two. Always love it when something you know you have isn't here. That's a VGA. That's a VGA. I know, exciting bit of video here. Well, perhaps it's downstairs. Well, we'll give this one a shot. Well, it's a good sign the LED is lit. Cards are all in. That's not a good sign. Well, maybe it is. Oh, it grabs sync. Although it may be that I'm feeding a CGA signal into it, because that's not so good. Where the there's a cursor blinking up there, barely. Well, that's not such a good sign. Let me set the jumpers on the PCB, or on the motherboard. There are a set of jumpers, so I can find the notes. Type IBM Color Graphics, IBM Monochrome has 1, 2, 3, switch 5 and 6 high, 5 and 6 are high. Oh, it's no display. Don't know that that's going to make a difference. Well, it's obviously not without the card plugged in. Well, I've got something that's a little better. The centering isn't great. I don't know if I've got controls to it. Oops. Microphone noise. Don't see any controls for centering. But at least there's video on it. I may have to open the box up. So at this point, I'm going to pop out the BIOS ROM. Put in the diagnostic ROM. So the issue I'm chasing here was I spent a lot of time last night dealing with parity errors across the sea of DRAMs down here. I've got 256K of 4164s installed. They're all 200 nanosecond. DOS 4 requires at least 256K to fire up the installer. I'd get this first bank, looks like it's nice and solid. It came with it. I had random failures all through, and I swapped and swapped and swapped. And the problem is when there's multi-chip failures, it gets a little bit hard to deal with. Well, let's see if we can get the diagnostic menu. Oh, well, same thing. Didn't plug the video card in again. I seem to be forgetting to plug in cards. And that obviously isn't right. Oh, there it is. Memory error 765, failing bits, no faults parity. I wish that was. Just heard the cassette relay. I'm gonna have to go look, see if I can find that other video card, just to see if the issue here is with the card. Yeah, this monitor's not happy. MDA memory passed. Floppy controller is not installed, it failed. No memory errors, failing bits. Total error, so it's, let's see. Well, if I had the keyboard plugged in, I might have some control. Well, as you can see, it's not perfect. Let me plug the keyboard in. You know, the no memory error 765, failing bits, no faults positive, parity errors, or no faults parity errors, is weird. Just ran video memory test. It sucks there's no external controls. I wonder if that's composite video out on there or not. I don't think so. Again, cassette relay clicking. I'm going to try something else here. So let's see, 5 high. Don't expect this to make a difference, but no memory errors. I wish I could see the failing bits down there. That's actually got better sync. It just needs to be resized and centered dramatically. Oh, it's always something. So I bought this card on eBay, paid a little too much for it. It's supposedly a monochrome graphics adapter. Let's see what we've got. Looks like it's a monochrome I know. Yeah, black and white parallel. So it is a monochrome adapter. Ah, we're getting memory failures. Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to cycle this card in and see if I can get better video. That monitor's really unhappy. I do believe I'm going to have to open this monitor up. I'm sure there's adjustments inside for video position and sizing. It's just a matter of finding the right controls. So I guess I will do that next. Okay, so I've got the monitor opened up, and as you can probably see, there was a number of video adjustments in it. I've got it adjusted pretty close. There was one, of course, for centering, another one that affects centering, and I wish one of those would actually control the width of the display. That's certainly centering. I'm kind of surprised both of those seem to affect things the same way. We've got the height, core intensity, and another height. That's really kind of odd that there's, it may be for different video modes, I don't know. But you know, at that point that is usable. We can see that there are failing bits at memory address 9C000, and there's 4 of them, which is interesting. 64, 128, 257, 64, 128. So I'm trying to think how I have an address 9C00. This should be 16.1. How much memory does it think is present? Could certainly do without that flicker. I don't think it's actually looking at the dip switches. I don't know if the camera's picking up the flicker or not, but it's actually pretty bad. It looks like it's focused. So there's a little switch underneath here. There we go. That helps. I'll take that. Oh, shit. Trying to shock myself. Kind of center these controls. There, the scan line is gone. So after it runs for a few seconds, we start getting parity errors on memory, which is kind of what I saw. It would attempt to boot, would get part way in, then would fail. I have to look at the documentation because address 9C00 doesn't make sense to me. This should be 256K of RAM, which means it should go from 00000 to 1, or to 0FFFF, and then 10001 FFF, 2 and 3. It should not be getting all the way up to 9, which is odd. Is it still doing something? Or has it hung up? Now I'm going to drop the floppy controller in without the floppy drive attached. It should at least detect the controller. It's confusing to me that it thinks there's RAM above 3FFFF. It doesn't know it's a... it's sitting here trying to do floppy read, which is of course not going to work. There's the floppy or the cassette relay clicking. Okay. I need to watch the addresses again on the memory run. I see what's going on here. Is it trying to test memory above? As it ran the memory test here, there is no memory at A000. Slow refresh address. So I guess the question here becomes, oh, okay, it's actually labeled on the board, so bit 0. Bring it back down here to the board. Probably kind of hard to see here at this severe angle. Bit 0 is labeled on this side on the board, which puts bit 7 on the other side over there. And of course the parity bit. So this tells me I probably got 4 bad DRAMs still in the system. Bits 1, 2, 6, and 7. So I think I'm going to pull an entire bank out. I'm going to run this again and watch where it comes up and fails. It gave me a pretty good hint. It showed the address down here as it was running. And I believe it was in the third bank where it actually flashed up the errors. Controller, floppy read will fail. It'll drop down to memory test. I wonder if there's a way to get it to just loop on memory test. So that did hit bank 4 when it failed. Oh, of course, this has got ROM probably at low memory. Guess I should actually go off and look at the architecture of the machine, but I haven't done that. Well, I shall return. So I've simply removed the 4 DRAMs that I think are being identified as failing. And we'll run another pass here and see if they fail again. That video flicker would certainly give me a headache if I had to look at it very long. I've removed the floppy controller, so it should fail. Cassette relay again. Wish I could skip some of these tests. I guess I should look at a little bit of documentation on this diagnostic utility. I assume it's waiting for timeouts on the floppy, most likely at this point. Which isn't very useful. Come on, little system. Move forward. Tape that down a little bit. Get it a little more in the plane with the camera. Well, that does look to be seriously hung right there. So I'll put the floppy controller back in. And see if that moves us past that spot a little quicker. Apparently there's 16K of critical RAM, which I assume is for the diagnostic to be able to do its thing. Not exactly sure how they're testing refresh, whether they're somehow not generating refresh or I should throw a floppy in the drive. Might make that go a bit quicker. Though I don't think I have any DOS formatted floppies. Interesting. Oh, there it is. So the same parity or the same memory errors occurred with those 4 chips removed, which put some potential into the 4 chips I removed are the ones causing the problem. And if there's 4 bad chips, which it appears there is, that would explain why no matter how much swapping I did, I couldn't identify it. So I'm going to put in 4 other 64K DRAMs and see what we get. So I've only put one 64K DRAM chip in bit position 0. And I'm hoping to see that position now pass. Looks like I've really gone through all of my 200 nanosecond 64K DRAMs. I'm putting a 150 in. I'm a bit leery about mixing speeds. I've heard that it can cause problems. I'm not sure I actually believe it can cause problems, but who knows. So let's see if bit 0 now passes. Well, excellent. That's a good sign. So bit 0 is now good. No, there it went and failed again. I can see this is going to be a pain. I guess I need to Oh, this could be, I wonder if it's just catching a bit some places failed. It's not actually giving me the address. Memory error at address 9C. I guess I could need to go look up the architecture, figure out where the first bank of 64K of RAM sits, what the address space is. That might help here. So, rather than guess at it. So, I'll go off and do some reading, and I'll be back. So I've gone ahead and pulled the upper 3 banks of RAM out of the system and just left the lower 64K in place. I've set the dip switches to what should be 64K. It's unclear to me if those are actually used or not. Put the video card back in and power it up one more time. And got that crazy not syncing thing going on. Interesting. I must have flipped a switch that affected the I must have flipped a switch accidentally that affected the type of video system it thought it had. Let's see what it thinks it has if I can get it to sync here. Where's the Okay, that's quite interesting. What have I done? Switch block 1, color graphics, IBM monochrome, positions 5 and 6 should be low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they are. Okay, I don't really understand that. Well, maybe I'll play with the adjustments on the monitor. See if I can bring that back in or not. I didn't actually tweak anything that time. Bank 1, 2, and 3 have failed. Okay, I see what's happening now. Bank 4, bank 5. So those bits 0, 2, 6, and 7, hopefully I'm recording here, are memory banks above the 64K. I'm not sure how to keep it from testing above. I think there's a way to sending in the manual to pause it from running. In this case, widen that video out if I can find that switch. This is an odd little monitor. Now, that's really slightly flickery. Monitor's just doing the best it can to sync to whatever signals it's being given. So what I want to watch is that lower 64K actually pass. Boy, it's having a really hard time with sync. Obviously it doesn't like this monitor type. And let's try some different monitor types, since that's obviously not a happy monitor. So 5 high, 6 low. It disturbs me that it's not displaying the switches. Yet they seem to be affecting video output. Well, I say that and then this happens. I don't know if this is just an unhappy monitor. Or it's just having trouble syncing to this. It's not showing the system switch settings, so it makes me wonder if the 8255's got an issue. It was too quick for me to see whether bank 0 had any errors or not. I wonder how I keep it, if I can keep it from testing. Oh, this is not making things easy for me, is it? I wish I could get it to just test the lower 64K and nothing else. It's almost like it's not reading the switches, except it's reacting maybe to the it's really washed out. Uh-oh. I don't want to burn this monitor up. I just want to start with that 8255, see if I can get it to read the switches. Okay, it's not happy with that at all. Well, it's taken a bit to figure out how to interpret the testing. I've added in the second bank of 64K, so bank 0 and 1 have 64K DRAMs in them. I've unhooked the PC speaker again, simply because it's very irritating when it hits errors. If I had a DOS formatted floppy laying around, which I guess technically I do, put it in the drive. As, it may keep it from spending so much time with floppy read errors. So it looks like the first 2 banks of memory passed there. I didn't see the errors pop up until we got to address 2C00, and now it's outside of the addressable RAM on the card or on the motherboard. Let this cycle. It's fairly slow. I wish it would only test up to the amount of actually installed RAM, but I guess it can't. There was bad. Yeah. And that's relay clicking is actually an error code. Tones being generated. And then the slow refresh. Got to kind of watch it here. It's slow refreshing the lower 64K. And the second half, the lower 64K is being tested. And the memory error address over here hasn't changed, so that memory is good so far. It's now into the second bank of 64K. Again, the last address failed, hasn't changed. It's in that second half of that 64K, 32K block, and again, the memory error address hasn't changed. And then when this jumps up there, and there it is, we've got a failure, as I expected, and that's because the second bank of memory isn't installed. So as I thought before, the lower 4 digits here are 64K, it's 16 bits, and then the bank number is that digit up there. So at this point it looks like I have got 128K of potentially good memory. I moved away from the TI devices. I was using the 200 nanosecond, and I've actually put in a bank of, boy, I don't know who manufactured them. They're 120 nanosecond. It looks to me like that second bank is working. Once the slow refresh tests get done, it'll then move on to some other tests and eventually display the switch settings. So I was wrong earlier when I thought maybe 8255 was having issues, or so. I'm going to let this cycle for a bit. This will of course come up to 10,000, which is the 640K, upper 64K. And we're just about done here. So we've now tried to look at 640K RAM. It's, again, the relay is clicking as it produces error tones. We've got the relay or the speaker unhooked, so we have to listen to them. And it's looking at ROMs. I don't have the basic ROMs even installed, so I'm not sure why some pass and some fail. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's U32. As it's looking at those ROM sockets. The fact that 3 of them pass and there's the switches and it's correct, and now it'll cycle through the tests again. So it's taken a bit to come to understand how this thing works, but it is actually giving me some useful information. Okay, I've added in the third bank of 64K DRAMs. And we'll power up. Oh, got to put in the video card first, or powering up doesn't do much good. And get the floppy in the drive so it gets through the floppy test. The little manual says it has a 10-second delay on the memory refresh, so it doesn't read or write from the DRAMs for 10 seconds, just to make sure the memory controller is, of course, doing its thing. And the first failure was at 3 000, so that makes sense. That time it got through the first 3 banks before it failed. And of course, all the banks above what are physically addressable are going to fail. So these are just all non sequiturs here. I guess I'm going to have to come up with a memory card to add more memory to this, get up 640K. It's producing an error alert now. That's why the relay is clicking. It'll be going beep, 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 but it's irritating. Slow refresh. Bank 0. That's still testing. I know this is very boring. Second half of bank 0. And this bank is also the 120 nanosecond. It's got an M on it. It's not Motorola, Mitsubishi maybe. Bank 1. Lower 32K. Bank 1, upper 32K. Still testing. Bank 2, lower 32K. And it should be bank 3, upper 32K here in a second. There it is, bank 3, upper 32K. And then it should immediately fail on bank 3. And then gets the lower 32K of it. Which, there it is. It'll update the memory error address here in a second. And there it did. So, first 3 banks look like they're testing okay. So I've got all 4 banks now installed with DRAMs. It's passed the memory test and the diagnostic. I've put the BIOS ROM back into the system. I'm hoping the floppies are going to work. And I'm going to see if I can get it to boot the install disk for DOS 4. Bring the power back up. Testing RAM, 256K, no basic ROM. And both drives are selecting, and I don't understand why. You know, it does seem to be reading. Yeah, that sounds like DOS trying to start. Insert select disk and drive A. Well, that's a good sign. So that's further than I got before. I should now be able to hopefully format and create a bootable DOS disk to play with. So there's the select disk, whatever that does. Yeah, there's something not right with drive B here, it looks like. That's not encouraging. Drive B appears to always be selected, even though apparently it's not, and I'm not sure why. DOS select version 4. I'll press return to continue. Insert install disk and drive A. Welcome to DOS and the select program select. I'm going to need 4 360K disks. I tried booting before. Actually, I should go back and try on the 1.22 megabyte floppies. I think I'm going to swap those in and boot again and see if I can build this on high density floppies. Although, do I have any high density floppies? I don't know. Anyhow, it is progress. At least I can boot into DOS and not get a memory parity error. So it's nice to get this far. I've been able to finally boot the DOS 4 installer. The installer is running now. It is creating the working disk on this drive and copying files from that drive, which has the install floppy in it. So this is definitely progress. So the issue really was just insert operating 1 diskette in A. What is operating diskette 1 in A? Is there a disk labeled operating? Yep, right here. Come on, little diskettes. Go into your little sleeves. Well, it's certainly progress. It's still building the working floppy. It'll, I think, build a boot floppy and 2 utility floppies or something, if I remember exactly what the menu said. So, but at this point, you know, it's definitely progress. Not that there's much exciting happening on the screen. So I'd say overall the assembly of the board was just, you know, a lot of soldering, paying attention to detail. Operating disk 2 is this one. A little bit of interpretation, as you know, the install instructions weren't super explicit. Again, you know, basic knowledge of digital technology, through hole, that kind of stuff. Certainly can put it together. Like I said, my biggest challenge was bad 64K DRAMs, and whether the -200s were just too slow that I had. It's got 3 banks of -120s, and the original bank that it came with are the -200s. And as it's working, I'm just going to leave it like this. And we'll just let it chug away here and see if I get a good set of bootable floppies. So, just what I needed, an IBM 5150 motherboard clone. Anyhow, fun little project. Well, it's gone ahead and created the boot floppy, and the system is booted from the boot floppy that we created with the DOS 4.0 install program. Not nearly as much stuff on there as I would have liked to have seen. Config driver display country. I don't see like format. Of course, format is not on the disk. So that's kind of painful. So I wonder what disk in the install package has the format utility on it. I guess this would have been better to a hard drive, and of course I'll try that next. So format is on B. Format.com. Boy, it's been a long time. Oh boy, I'm off in the world of a whole different operating system. Copy format.com to drive A. Now I should be able to format a nice blank 360K floppy. port. I need to go back to drive A. Wow, I don't remember the syntax for format. What just format B colon. Sort new disk in B. Well, I can hear the head stepping, so I know it's doing something. So, well, we have a nice speedy 8088 based machine, 256K RAM, monochrome graphics. Sorry for the jerkiness here. A couple of 360K floppy drives, old school power supply, and the board here kind of in frame. Things I want to do going forward is add a floppy drive to it, or a hard drive. Actually may have a controller I'll be able to do that with that'll support compact flash, I'm not sure. Memory expansion, of course, card, and I wouldn't mind finding the ROMs to put basic on the motherboard. I'll have to do some Googling. So anyhow, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'm sure this has run way too long. I don't know if anybody will get to the end of this or not, but it is what it is. So talk to you soon. Bye.